This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. Hello and welcome to the Education Business Podcast. Once again, hopefully, if you are a returning listener. I've been talking quite extensively recently about building value in your business, about being a business owner rather than being a solopreneur, because we all start with solopreneurship if we start our own company, but solopreneurship is a job that we love, which is great, but there has to come a point where we transition that job that we love into owning a business if we want to see the business pay us back for the hard work that we've put in one day. And even along the way as well, because it's not necessarily just about a capital event that happens in the future. It's how you end up contributing to your business and showing up in your business over time as well. So I thought it would be good to go through some key signs really, which will help you understand whether you're ready to make that switch. So you might be a solopreneur now, knowing that you want to get to business ownership, but you don't really know what the circumstances and the environment should be for you to be able to step into that. So what are the signs? How do you know that you're getting there? I think the first step is that you're not worried about your next sale. That might look like enough subscribers without a huge churn rate, but you're not scratching around trying to get the next sale. That's the awareness piece and the sales and marketing piece that we work on in the very early stages of our business to get to a point to be the successful solopreneur. So if you are worried about where your next £100 is coming from, then you're not ready to step into business ownership. And we can do it too early. The focus there has to be on building this job that you love so that it's a full-time job, ideally more, where you actually have the funds to be able to step into business ownership. And that might qualify you out straight away. I think of these 7 steps, you do need all 7. And you can step into it before then. I think I did do that. If you want to make it easier for yourself, ideally you will have all 7 steps. The second step relates to the first. So if you know that you could deliver more of a service, it might be tutoring children, it might be creating resources, it might be consulting in schools, but if you knew that you could deliver more of a service in terms of quantity, if you invested in help, then that is a sign you are ready. So for example, say you're a consultant in schools and you're in schools 3 days a week. You have a lot of planning and admin to do, so you do those on the other 2 days a week. You have schools lining up to work with you. You could absolutely change that to 4 days a week if you hired a VA, for example, to take some of the admin away. Then yes, even though it's still centred around you and it being a job that you love, you're ready to take those first steps and step into business ownership. Now, step 2 is a common point where we can actually get people to help us with our businesses. But we can be a solopreneur with a job that we love and have a couple of people to help. We could have even had an employee, but we might not really have stepped into the business ownership side because it does depend on our mindset as well. So step 3 is that you're ready to change your relationship with your business. I'm talking about letting things go, which is hard. And it means that mistakes happen and things don't go the way that you want. It's never perfect. It means that you have to learn what letting go really means. That was a hard task for me. Many times I've let go too much and things have happened. And then I've been annoyed that those things have happened and people haven't thought in the same way that I have. So there has to be a reasonable monitoring process going on years down the line. It's not just about getting someone amazing, training them, and then letting them get on with it sometimes. We do have to keep a handle on things. And when we begin, we think that it's all to do with how capable they are. But actually, it's all to do with who we are and the relationship we have with our business. And so you need to be ready to change that relationship. It's not going to be the baby anymore. It's going to be a child. And you're going to have to let the child make mistakes. And you're going to have to find ways to guide them through the phase of childhood without micromanaging them, because they'll be very unhappy and they won't trust you. So that's step 3. Step 4, You've already started listening to personal development books to understand yourself, to start unpacking all of the stuff that's happened in your past. Maybe you've got trauma. Maybe you need to talk things through. Maybe you need to reframe things that happened, reassign different meanings. Maybe you need to learn about the brain and why it is that we react in certain ways, why people act the way they do. So you've started listening to those books already. Or at the very minimum, you've at least bought one. You can't step into business ownership until you're willing to grow yourself, even if you've already got a few team members. Number 5, you're willing to get uncomfortable. Now, as entrepreneurs, we are willing to get uncomfortable in certain areas, the areas that we don't mind being uncomfortable in. But you've got to be uncomfortable across the board. We've got to be willing to be uncomfortable in places we really are uncomfortable, especially when it comes to employing team members, working with other people, having difficult conversations, putting yourself out there more because you've got to grow this business bigger now, because you've got a team. It's almost like a dial. If you can imagine a dial that you turn and it's 1 to 5, and when you started your business, it was on number 1. When you commit to growing a business bigger than yourself, at the beginning, you'll turn it up to number 2. And what you're saying is, right, I'm doubling the amount of times I'm willing to be uncomfortable and the types of discomfort I'm willing to experience. And so you need to be aware of that dial and intentionally turn that dial up. Number 6, you don't have split priorities. This means you don't have different things going on at once. So as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about Education Business Club and Classroom Secrets. Education Business Club for me is still in the startup phase. I don't have a team yet, but I know that the team is coming. What I don't want to do is step into team too early, as I have done in the past. That was a mistake that I made in the earlier days of Education Business Club. Now, there's going to come a point where I am growing a team at Education Business Club and I'm still chairman at Classroom Secrets. Well, I think that will happen anyway. And I know that will be okay because they will be very different things. And Classroom Secrets will be something that I do either a day a week or it might even be once a month by then. So I appreciate I'm telling you to do something differently to what I am technically doing, but I think it depends on the circumstances. So if you are doing supply and you're not really sure what days you're going to do, or you're doing 3 days or more, you're going to find it really hard to then manage a team as you begin to grow it. So you'd be better finding a way to replicate that income or improve it more by you working in the business as a solopreneur. What we can end up doing is giving all the money away to other people because we're too afraid of our own security or the situation that we're in. Or we can have 3 different startup businesses that we're trying to do at the same time. I took a break from Education Business Club in 2023 for that reason. Classroom Secrets was not a startup, but I had split priorities and I needed to focus on some things. So it's something to really think about. If you feel like your priorities are split, you're not going to be able to grow the company properly, and you're certainly not going to be able to keep a handle on it as soon as you start getting other people on board. It's going to feel even harder because you're not going to be as close to the ground as you need to be. You're not going to be there to support them when they need it. You're not going to be able to keep a handle on things. Now, obviously, it depends on your specific circumstances, but in those situations, based on my experience, I would say it's better to pick one startup and focus on that. And number 7, you can live on less. So you know and understand how to live on less. Or you've been saving up in the company, which is kind of the same thing, really. So at Classroom Secrets, I didn't take a huge salary. I left teaching fairly early on, so it meant that I had not created lots and lots of outgoings that were then a problem. It's a lot harder to leave teaching when you're on a 65 grand salary in leadership. So I mainly kept the money in the company and I just paid myself a small salary. So I built up the finance in there. Things are going to be unpredictable, especially when you've got a team. So if you haven't done already, find ways to live on less so that you can have that buffer. Maybe you end up creating that buffer in your personal life. Maybe you end up creating the buffer in the business. Maybe it's both. But I do think it's possible to look at what we're spending and spend less. And if we can approach that mindset so that we can invest more into our businesses, believing that it's going to pay off and doing all of the work to make that happen, that helps us move into business ownership. Because we're becoming more serious with the finances for the responsibilities that we are now accepting into our lives. So if you've been listening to my episodes recently and maybe came to hear me speak, and you feel that you are on the solopreneurship journey, and you want to get to a point where you're into business ownership, hopefully these 7 steps will just help you get ready for that, to focus on the right things. Because we can think about business ownership and we can think, right, okay, I need to employ somebody. But these are the steps that need to happen before we even get there. And perhaps you have got a team and you don't have all of these things in place. Well, these 7 steps will help you rebuild some of the foundations or put in the foundations that are not there that you need in your business to help you move forward on your business ownership journey. I'd absolutely love your feedback. Do you enjoy my podcast? Is it helpful to you? Will you be listening next week? Have you been binge listening all of the episodes? Are there any friends you could share it with? Thank you for listening, and I'm going to see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.